The smoke still rose from the broken cities 3 weeks after Earth fell. Marcus Chun crouched behind a pile of concrete and metal that used to be a shopping mall. His dirty clothes made him look like any other survivor searching for food and water. Nobody would guess he once led special forces missions in 12 different countries. The aliens called themselves Zephyrians. They came from the stars in ships that looked like floating crystals. Their weapons turned tanks into melted metal. Their shields stopped bullets like they were raindrops. Earth's armies fought hard, but it was like throwing rocks at a mountain. Marcus watched a group of Zephyrian soldiers march down what used to be Main Street. They wore silver armor that seemed to glow with its own light. Their faces looked almost human, but their skin was pale blue and their eyes were too large. Each soldier carried a weapon that could burn through a concrete wall. The soldiers were hunting again. They came every few days to take people. Not to kill them. That would have been easier. They took the ones who seemed different or special. Marcus had watched them take Sarah the nurse because she could calm scared children. They took Mike the mechanic because he could fix anything. They took Professor Williams because he knew 7 languages. A little girl peeked out from behind a broken car. She could not have been older than 8. One of the soldiers saw her and pointed his weapon. Marcus felt his muscles tense. He had promised himself he would stay hidden. He had to think about the bigger picture. But when he saw that scared little face, all his training meant nothing. Marcus picked up a chunk of concrete and threw it hard. It hit the soldier in the head, and the alien stumbled. The other soldiers spun around, looking for the threat. Marcus was already moving, using the broken buildings like a maze. He had learned these ruins better than anyone. The soldiers chased him through empty stores and collapsed hallways. Marcus led them away from the little girl and the other hiding survivors. When the aliens finally caught him, he put up just enough fight to look brave, but not smart. They stunned him with their weapons and dragged him to their transport ship far above Earth. Queen Vexara sat on her throne made of living crystal. The throne ship was bigger than most human cities, and it sparkled with lights that showed the power flowing through it. She was beautiful in a cold way, with silver hair that moved like water and eyes that glowed with a soft blue light. The queen collected interesting things. Her palace had rooms filled with creatures from 100 different worlds. Some had 6 arms and could paint pictures with their minds. Others could change their shape like liquid. There were beings made of pure energy that sang songs no human could hear, but humans were boring her. She looked at the reports from her soldiers with growing disappointment. Most of the captured humans just cried or begged. Some got angry, but their anger was simple and predictable. They were not like the Kalari, who could become invisible, or the Nexari, who could talk to machines with their thoughts. Perhaps this species was a mistake, she said to her advisor, a tall creature with 4 eyes and no mouth. They have no special gifts. They compensate with crude tools, but even those are primitive. The advisor made a sound like wind through leaves, which meant agreement. Queen Vexara was about to order her forces to stop collecting humans, when a new report caught her attention. The report showed footage of the latest hunt. She watched a human male throw a stone at her soldier. Most humans either ran or tried to hide. This one chose to attack. But that was not what interested her. She watched how he moved through the broken city. Every step was planned. Every turn had purpose. He led her soldiers exactly where he wanted them to go. "Show me his capture again," she commanded. The footage played a second time. The queen noticed something her soldiers had missed. The human's eyes never stopped moving. Even while he fought, he was studying everything around him. When the stun weapons hit him, she saw him test his bonds while pretending to be unconscious. This was not simple bravery. This was a mind that never stopped thinking. Marcus woke up in a small room with walls that glowed with soft light. His head hurt from the stun weapon, but he forced himself to stay calm. The first thing he did was check every inch of his prison. The walls felt warm to the touch. The door had no handle on the inside. There was a small window that showed stars moving slowly past. A voice came from the walls themselves, speaking perfect English. "You are aboard the flagship of Queen Vesara, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire. You have been selected for her collection. Do not attempt to resist or escape. You will be fed and cared for as long as you prove interesting." Marcus sat on the simple bed and smiled grimly. Selected for her collection. Like he was a rare butterfly or an unusual rock. The aliens thought they understood humans, but they had no idea what they had just brought aboard their ship. He began his real work immediately. He listened to the sounds of the ship around him. He felt the vibrations in the floor when something large moved in the corridors. He watched the lights and tried to understand their patterns. Every detail might be important later. The Queen was right about one thing. Humans had no special powers. They could not read minds or change shape or become invisible. But she had made a terrible mistake. She thought that made them weak. Marcus knew better. Humans became dangerous exactly because they had no gifts. Every other species could rely on their natural abilities. Humans had to think their way out of every problem. They had to be smarter, more creative, and more determined than anything else in the galaxy. And now she had invited one aboard her ship. Marcus settled down to wait and learn. The Queen thought she had captured an interesting pet. She had no idea she had just brought her worst enemy home. Marcus spent his first day aboard the alien ship learning everything he could. The room they gave him was small but clean. Food appeared through a slot in the wall 3 times a day. It tasted strange but filled his stomach. The aliens wanted their prisoners healthy. He listened to the sounds around him. Footsteps in the corridor outside were always the same pattern. Heavy boots, not rushed. Guards making regular rounds. He counted the time between each patrol. Exactly 18 minutes. Even their security was predictable. On the second day, the door opened with a soft hiss. 2 guards stood outside, their weapons ready but not aimed at him. Between them was another human, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She looked tired and scared. "Hello," she whispered as the guards pushed her into the room across from his. "I'm Dr. Elizabeth Santos. I was a teacher before all this." Marcus moved to his window so she could see him. The guards had already walked away. "Marcus Chun," he said quietly. "How long have you been here?" 2 weeks. Maybe 3. It's hard to tell with no sun. Dr. Santos wrapped her arms around herself. "She keeps us like pets. The Queen, I mean. Sometimes she brings us out to look at us, to ask us questions about Earth." This was useful information. Marcus kept his voice calm and friendly. "What kind of questions?" "About our history, our wars, how we organize our societies. She seems curious about how we think." Dr. Santos shuddered. "The others say we're lucky. Some species in her collection have it much worse." Before Marcus could ask more, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Different footsteps this time. Lighter, more confident. The guards returned with someone new. She walked like she owned the universe, and Marcus realized she probably did. Queen Vesara was even more impressive in person than in the footage he had seen during Earth's final broadcasts. She was tall and graceful, the skin that seemed to glow with its own light. Her silver hair moved around her face like it was underwater. When she looked at him through the transparent wall, her eyes seemed to look right through him. "So you are the one who attacks my soldiers with rocks," she said. Her voice was smooth and cold, like winter wind over ice. "Tell me, Marcus Chen of Earth, why did you choose to fight when you could have hidden?" Marcus met her gaze without flinching. Most people would have looked away from those glowing eyes. but he had stared down warlords and terrorists. An alien queen was just another enemy to study. There was a child in danger, a child you did not even know. Didn't matter. Queen Vexara tilted her head like a bird studying a bug. Your species continues to puzzle me. The Kaleri would have saved only their own family group. The Nexari would have calculated the odds and chosen the safe path. But humans... She paused. Humans do things that make no logical sense. Maybe that's our strength, Marcus said. The Queen's laugh was like crystal bells ringing. Strength? Your world fell in less than a week. Your weapons could not even scratch our shields. Your ships moved like crawling insects compared to ours. Marcus shrugged. We're still here. Something flickered in the Queen's eyes. Interest, maybe? Or annoyance. Some of you are here, yes. In my collection. Tell me, what did you do before the war? This was the moment Marcus had been preparing for. He could tell her the truth about his military background and probably end up in a much smaller, much less comfortable cell. Or he could lie and maybe get the chance he needed to learn about her ship. I built things, he said, which was not really a lie. He had built safe houses and escape routes and networks of contacts all over the world. Construction work, mostly. A builder. The Queen sounded disappointed. How ordinary. But Marcus saw her eyes narrow slightly. She was not completely convinced. Good. Let her wonder. People who wondered tended to keep talking, and talking people revealed information. Your Majesty, Dr. Santa spoke up from her cell. May I ask what you plan to do with us? Queen Vexara turned to look at the older woman. Her expression was the same as someone looking at a talking pet. You will live here. You will be comfortable. In return, you will answer my questions about your species. I am writing a study of conquered worlds for my Imperial Library. And if we refuse? Marcus asked, why would you refuse? You have food, shelter, safety. Much better than hiding in ruins on your dead world. The Queen's voice held a hint of genuine confusion. Most species are grateful to be chosen from my collection. Marcus almost smiled. She really did see them as pets. Interesting pets that could talk and answer questions, but pets all the same. That was good. Pets were not seen as threats. Pets were trusted with small freedoms. What if we wanted to help more? Marcus asked. Instead of just answering questions, what if we wanted to teach you about human thinking? Queen Vexara's eyebrows rose. Teach me? You said we puzzle you. That we do things that make no sense. Maybe we could help you understand. Show you how humans solve problems. How we think about strategy and survival. The Queen was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Marcus kept his expression open and honest, like someone making a genuine offer. Inside, his mind was racing. If she agreed, he would get access to information about her military, about her empire, about the weaknesses he needed to find. Interesting, she finally said. Very few of my collection have ever offered to serve willingly. Most simply accept their fate or beg to go home. Home is gone, Marcus said simply. But maybe we can make sure other worlds don't suffer the same fate. If you understand this better, maybe there doesn't have to be so much destruction next time. It was a perfect lie, wrapped around just enough truth to be believable. Marcus really did want to prevent more worlds from falling, but not by teaching the Queen how to conquer them more easily. He wanted to stop her empire completely. Queen Vexara smiled, and for a moment she looked almost human, almost kind. You continue to surprise me, Marcus-chan. Yes, I think I would like to understand how your species thinks. You will be moved to quarters near my chambers. We will have many conversations. She turned and glided away, her guards following. Dr. Santos stared at Marcus with wide eyes. What are you doing? She whispered. Marcus watched the Queen disappear around a corner. "Learning," he said softly. "Every war has been won by someone who understood their enemy better than their enemy understood them." Dr. Santos looked frightened. "You're planning something." Marcus turned back to his small window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the remains of humanity were hiding and struggling to survive. Somewhere, other worlds were preparing to face the same fate Earth had suffered. "I'm planning everything," he said. Marcus's new quarters were much larger than his cell. The room had actual furniture instead of just a bed. There was a desk, chairs, and a large window that showed the endless stars. Most importantly, it was only 3 corridors away from the Queen's personal chambers. Every morning, guards came to bring him to Queen Vexara. They did not chain him or point weapons at him anymore. After 2 weeks of conversations, they saw him as the Queen's new pet project. That was exactly what Marcus wanted them to think. "Tell me about human military strategy," the Queen said during one of their morning talks. They sat in her private study, surrounded by floating displays that showed maps of conquered worlds. "Your species fought many wars against each other before we arrived. How did the weaker armies sometimes defeat the stronger ones?" Marcus pretended to think carefully, but he had been planning this conversation for days. Surprise was usually the key. The stronger army expected the weaker one to fight in a predictable way. When the weaker army did something unexpected, it created opportunities, such as hit-and-run tactics. Attack supply lines instead of main forces. Make the enemy fight where they don't want to fight. Marcus gestured to one of her star maps. "Your forces are very strong, but they seem to follow the same patterns on every world. Direct assault, overwhelming firepower, quick surrender." Queen Vexara leaned forward with interest. "You think this is a weakness?" "Not a weakness exactly. It's very effective. But it might not work against an enemy who refused to surrender, who kept fighting in ways you don't expect." Marcus kept his voice academic, like a professor discussing ancient history. The Queen smiled. "Fortunately, most species are intelligent enough to surrender when faced with superior force. Only a few worlds have required extended operations." This was new information. Marcus filed it away carefully. What made those worlds different? Foolish pride, mostly. The Thraxi had natural armor that made them think they were invincible. The Atani could manipulate gravity, so they believed they could defeat our ships. All of them learned otherwise, of course. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "What about species with no special abilities? Like humans? There have been others like your species. They fall the fastest, usually. No natural gifts to give them false confidence." Queen Vexara paused. "Although your people did hold out longer than predicted, our analysts still cannot explain why." "Because you don't understand desperation," Marcus thought. "You don't know what it means to have no choice, but to keep fighting." But he just nodded again and made a thoughtful sound. These conversations taught him valuable things about Zephyrian military doctrine. Their tactics relied heavily on technological superiority and psychological warfare. They expected enemies to fight in organized, predictable ways. They had contingency plans for various alien abilities, but they struggled against unconventional tactics. Most importantly, Marcus learned about their command structure. Everything flowed from the top down. The Queen gave orders to her admirals, who gave orders to ship captains, who gave orders to ground commanders. It was efficient, but it was also fragile. Cut the head off, the snake, and the body would struggle to function. But Marcus needed more than just information about military tactics. He needed allies. And Queen Vexara's collection provided exactly what he was looking for. During his 3rd week aboard the ship, the Queen arranged for him to meet other specimens in her collection. It was meant to be a social gathering for her entertainment. She wanted to watch how humans interacted with truly alien species. The first creature Marcus met looked like a tall, thin human made of silver light. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from inside his head rather than through his ears. "You are the human who interests the Queen," the creature said, without moving its mouth. "I am kissed of the Etherian people. I can sense thoughts, but yours are unusual." Marcus kept his mental barriers up, a technique he had learned during interrogation training. Unusual how? Layered. Most minds are like single rooms. Yours is like a building with many floors, and some of the doors are locked. Kiseth tilted its head. "You were a warrior." "Once," Marcus admitted quietly. A new voice interrupted them. This one came from a creature that looked like a blue-skinned woman with too many arms. "We are all warriors here, in our own ways. I am Veltar of the Kalari. We shapeshift, but it has not saved us from captivity." The third alien was harder to look at directly. Its form seemed to shift constantly between different geometric shapes. "I am Nexus 9 of the Nexari Collective. We interface with technology directly, yet we could not prevent our capture." Marcus looked around at the group. Each species had abilities that humans could never match. But they were all prisoners, just like him. "How long have you all been here?" "Time moves strangely in this place," Kaiset H replied. "But I have been here since my world fell 5 cycles ago." The Queen finds our abilities amusing, but not threatening. "Because she doesn't understand them properly," Veltar added with bitterness. "She sees shape-shifting as entertainment. She has me change forms to amuse her guests." Nexus 9's form stabilized into something almost humanoid. "The Queen studies our abilities, but does not comprehend their true applications. She thinks in terms of direct power rather than creative solutions." Marcus felt a plan beginning to form in his mind. These beings were not just prisoners. They were resources. Each had abilities that could be crucial if properly coordinated. But first, he needed to understand exactly what they could do. What if someone wanted to coordinate your abilities? He asked carefully. "Hypothetically speaking," Kiseth's silver eyes seemed to glow brighter. "I can communicate telepathically across great distances, through quantum fields that the Zephyrians do not monitor." "I can take any form I have seen," Veltar said, "including Zephyrian soldiers. Their security systems recognize appearance, not true identity." Nexus 9 pulsed with different colors. "I can interface with any technology, given proximity and time. Their systems are complex, but not impossible to understand." Marcus nodded slowly. A telepath who could coordinate operations. A shapeshifter who could infiltrate security. A tech specialist who could sabotage systems. Combined with his own skills in strategy and tactics, they could actually have a chance, but they would need more than just the 4 of them. They would need detailed information about the ship's weaknesses. They would need timing. Most of all, they would need Queen Vexara to remain convinced that her pets were harmless. "The Queen enjoys our conversations about human strategy," Marcus said slowly. "She's been asking me to analyze historical battles from Earth. Maybe I could ask her about some of her own military campaigns. Learn more about how the Zephyrian Empire operates." Kiseth's thoughts brushed against his mind, carefully respectful of his mental barriers. "You think like a general, not a construction worker." Marcus smiled grimly. Maybe humans are better at adapting than anyone realizes. Over the following days, Marcus carefully escalated his conversations with Queen Vexara. He showed genuine fascination with her military victories, asking detailed questions about tactics and logistics. The Queen was proud of her conquests and happy to explain how her forces had overcome various challenges. With each conversation, Marcus learned more about the Empire's structure. The fleet operated with clockwork precision, but that precision was also a vulnerability. Everything depended on maintaining communication with the command ship. disrupt that communication, and the entire armada would be temporarily blind and confused. The Queen even showed him technical displays of her ship's systems. Proud of their superiority over human technology, Marcus memorized every detail while pretending to be impressed by the pretty lights and complicated diagrams. Your species' military thinking is more sophisticated than I initially believed, Queen Vexara admitted during one session. Perhaps there is wisdom in studying the tactics of supposedly primitive civilizations. Every species probably developed something unique, Marcus agreed. Humans had to be creative because we were usually outgunned or outnumbered. Indeed, I am beginning to think your people might have proven more troublesome than predicted, had they been better organized. Marcus nodded thoughtfully, but inside he was smiling. The Queen had no idea just how troublesome humans could be when properly motivated. She was about to find out. Queen Vexara was excited about her new idea. Marcus could see it in the way she moved around her war room, gesturing at the floating displays that showed star maps and fleet positions. After weeks of conversation about military strategy, she had decided to test him. "I want to see human tactical thinking in action," she announced. "Not just theory, but practice. You will command forces in our war games." The war games were holographic simulations that the Zephyrian military used for training. Officers would command virtual fleets and armies, testing new strategies against computer opponents or each other. The Queen thought it would be entertaining to see how a primitive human would perform against advanced Zephyrian tactics. Marcus kept his expression carefully neutral, but inside his heart raced with anticipation. This was the opportunity he had been working toward for weeks. The chance to see exactly how Zephyrian military systems operated from the inside. "I would be honored, Your Majesty," he said with just the right amount of humble enthusiasm, "though I'm sure I'll be completely outmatched by your superior technology." The Queen's smile was cold and amused. "Naturally, but it will be educational for both of us. I want to understand how humans think about warfare, and you will learn why resistance to the Empire is futile." The first simulation was simple. Marcus was given command of a small fleet of human-style ships and told to defend the planet against the Zephyrian attack. The Queen expected him to lose quickly, but she wanted to see how he approached the problem. Marcus studied the tactical display for several minutes, noting every detail. The Zephyrian attack force was 3 times larger than his defending fleet. Their ships had superior shields, weapons, and speed. By any reasonable calculation, the defense was hopeless. But Marcus was not thinking reasonably. He was thinking like a human who had spent his career fighting impossible battles and finding ways to win them. Instead of meeting the attack head-on, he split his forces into small groups. Instead of protecting the planet directly, he attacked the enemy's supply ships. Instead of fighting where the enemy was strong, he forced them to fight where they were vulnerable. The simulation lasted 4 hours instead of the predicted 30 minutes. Marcus lost in the end, but he destroyed twice as many enemy ships as anyone had expected. More importantly, he forced the Zephyrian fleet to adapt their tactics multiple times, something that rarely happened in their training exercises. Queen Vexara watched the replay with growing interest. "Remarkable. You made them work much harder than anticipated. Run another simulation." The second test was larger. Marcus commanded the defense of an entire star system against a full Zephyrian battle group. Again, he was outnumbered and outgunned. Again, he refused to fight the way the enemy expected. This time, Marcus used deception. He made fake signals to convince the enemy that some of his ships were evacuation transports. When the Zephyrians moved to intercept what they thought were fleeing civilians, they found military vessels waiting in ambush. He used their own moral protocols against them. He also exploited their rigid command structure. By targeting the enemy's communication ships first, he forced their fleet to operate without central coordination. The Zephyrian ships were individually superior, but they struggled to work together effectively once their command network was disrupted. The simulation ended with both fleets badly damaged. But Marcus had achieved his objective of protecting the civilian population. In military terms, it was a strategic victory despite being a tactical loss. Queen Vexara was no longer smiling. Run a third simulation. I want to see your full capabilities. The third test was the one Marcus had been waiting for. The Queen gave him command of a mixed fleet, ships from several different species that the Empire had conquered. His objective was to attack a Zephyrian stronghold and capture it intact. For the first time since his capture, Marcus allowed himself to think without restraints. He stopped pretending to be just a clever construction worker and became what he really was. A special operations commander who had spent 20 years learning how to fight enemies with superior numbers and technology. The battle lasted 12 hours. Marcus used every trick he had ever learned, and several he invented on the spot. He turned the different alien ship types into specialized units, each performing tasks they were uniquely suited for. He used psychological warfare, making the defenders think they faced a much larger force. He exploited every weakness in Zephyrian doctrine that he had learned during his conversations with the Queen. Most importantly, he coordinated his attack with precision that impressed even the Zephyrian computer systems. Every ship knew exactly where to be and when to be there. Every strike hit at the perfect moment to create maximum chaos. The attacking fleet moved like a single organism with Marcus as its brain. When the simulation ended, the Zephyrian stronghold had fallen. Marcus had achieved total victory with minimal casualties to his own forces. The Queen's mighty fortress had been taken by an enemy using inferior technology and unconventional tactics. Queen Vexara stared at the tactical display in complete silence for nearly 5 minutes. When she finally spoke, her voice was very different from before. The amusement was gone. The casual superiority was gone. For the first time since Marcus had met her, she sounded uncertain. Run the analysis, she commanded her computer systems. Show me how he did it. The computer began breaking down Marcus's strategy step by step. It highlighted his use of feints and misdirection. It showed how he had turned the strengths of different ship types into weaknesses for the defenders. It demonstrated the precise timing that had made his coordination so effective. But the computer could not explain the most important part. It could not explain how Marcus had known exactly which assumptions the Zephyrian defenders would make. It could not explain how he had predicted their responses so accurately that he was already preparing countermeasures before they even acted. You knew, Queen Vexara said finally. You knew exactly how my forces would respond to every one of your attacks. Marcus met her gaze without flinching. The time for pretending was over. Yes. How? Because you told me. Over the past weeks, you've described dozens of your military campaigns. You've shown me how your forces operate. You've explained your tactical doctrines. Marcus gestured to the simulation display. Everything you're proud of, every victory you've celebrated, it all follows the same patterns. The Queen's eyes began to glow brighter, a sign of anger or fear. You studied me. From the beginning, you were studying me. I was studying your entire military structure, your communication systems, your command protocols, your assumptions about how warfare works. Marcus stood up slowly, his posture changing from respectful servant to confident soldier. Did you really think I was just a curious construction worker? Queen Vexara's beautiful face twisted with rage and something else. Something that might have been fear. What are you? I'm a human, Marcus said simply. We don't have natural armor like the Thraxi. We can't manipulate gravity like the Atani. We can't read minds or change shape or interface with technology. We're weak and slow and fragile. He moved closer to her throne, and for the first time, the queen leaned back slightly. But we've been fighting each other for thousands of years. Every war taught us something new. Every defeat made us stronger. We learned to think 3 steps ahead because we couldn't afford to be stupid. We learned to adapt quickly because we couldn't afford to be predictable. Marcus gestured to the simulation display, which still showed the ruins of her supposedly impregnable fortress. You've conquered dozens of species who relied on their natural gifts, but you've never faced a species that turned weakness into strength. That made intelligence their only weapon and sharpened it until it could cut through anything. Queen Vexara stood from her throne, her royal composure cracking. You are one human. One clever human in a cage aboard my ship. Marcus smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Your Majesty, you've been having these same conversations with me for weeks, teaching me about your empire, showing me your technology, explaining your strategies. He paused to let that sink in. What makes you think I'm the only one learning? The queen's eyes widened as the implications hit her. Kaiser H, the telepathic communications. Among other things, yes. You've been coordinating with the others, planning something. I've been doing what humans do when they're cornered, Marcus said. I've been adapting. Queen Vexara stepped backward, her hand moving toward a control panel that would summon her guards. But Marcus made no threatening moves. He simply stood there, watching her with calm, calculating eyes. You wanted to understand human thinking, he said. Now you do. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We just find new ways to fight until we win or until we're all dead. And we're very, very hard to kill. The queen's hand hovered over the alarm control. What do you want? Right now? I want you to think very carefully about what comes next. Because the war games are over, Your Majesty. And this time, you're not going to like how the simulation ends. Queen Vexara's hand was still poised over the alarm control when the ship's lights suddenly flickered and changed from white to red. Emergency signals began blaring through the corridors. Her perfect features twisted with confusion and then growing horror as she realized the alerts were not responding to her commands. Too late, Marcus said calmly. The game is already in motion. The queen slammed her palm down on the control panel, but nothing happened. The alarms continued screaming, but no guards came running to answer her call. The floating displays around her throne began showing error messages in languages she had never seen before. What have you done? She demanded. Marcus walked over to one of the malfunctioning displays and studied it with professional interest. Nexus 9 is quite talented with technology, as I'm sure you remember. It took them 3 weeks to fully understand your ship's systems, but once they did, he gestured at the chaos around them. Well, you can see the results. This is impossible. Our security systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. Your security systems are designed to keep prisoners in cells and to prevent external attacks. They weren't designed to stop someone who was already inside with full access to your command networks. Marcus turned back to face her. You gave me quarters near your chambers. You brought me to your war room. You showed me your tactical displays. Every day, you gave me more access to the heart of your ship. The queen's composure was cracking completely now. She kept pressing controls, but nothing responded to her commands. The guards will stop this madness. My security forces will. Your security forces are currently very confused, Marcus interrupted. Veltar can look like anyone they've seen before. Right now, your guards are receiving orders from what appears to be you, telling them to stand down and return to quarters. Amazing how much chaos one shapeshifter can create when they know exactly which orders to give. Queen Vexara stepped back from her useless control panels. And the telepathic creature? Kaiser H is coordinating with resistance forces throughout your entire fleet. Every ship in your armada has collected specimens aboard. Every collected specimen has been in contact with us for weeks. Marcus's smile was sharp and cold. Did you really think we were the only ones who got tired of being pets? The implications of his words hit the Queen like a physical blow. Her collection wasn't just aboard this ship. There were specimens on every vessel in her fleet. Hundreds of different species with hundreds of different abilities, all of them prisoners. All of them with reasons to hate their captors. You've turned my entire collection into an army, she whispered. I've reminded them that they're not pets, Marcus corrected. They're survivors. And survivors fight back. The red emergency lights suddenly changed to blue, then green, then began cycling through colors that had no names. The ship's computer systems were speaking in a dozen different alien languages at once. Through the throne room's windows, Queen Vexara could see similar chaos spreading to other vessels in her fleet. Ships were changing course without authorization. Communication arrays were broadcasting random signals. The perfect order of her armada was dissolving into confusion. Stop this, the Queen commanded. You cannot possibly hope to control an entire fleet. Your coordination will break down. My admirals will regain control. Marcus shook his head. Your admirals are dealing with the same problems you are. And even if they weren't, they can't adapt quickly enough. That's the weakness of rigid command structures. When the top breaks down, everything else stops working. He moved to the central display, which was now showing a tactical overview of the entire fleet. Red warning symbols were appearing on ship after ship as their internal systems went offline or began following new orders. You see, Your Majesty, this isn't really about controlling your fleet. This is about demonstrating something important. Marcus touched the display, and it zoomed in to show Earth's solar system. Your invasion of my world failed in one crucial way. You conquered us, but you didn't break us. Humans don't stay conquered. The Queen stared at the display with growing dread. Those signals Kiseth has been sending have been going to more than just your fleet. Yes. Amazing how much technical information can be transmitted when you have a telepathic communications network that your enemies don't even know exists. Marcus's eyes were hard as steel. Humans learn fast, Your Majesty. We've spent weeks studying your technology, learning how your shields work, understanding your weapon systems, figuring out how to build ships that can fight yours. New contacts began appearing on the tactical display. Small ships at first, barely visible against the background of space. But they were accelerating toward the Zephyrian fleet with purpose and coordination that spoke of careful planning. Human ships, Queen Vexara breathed. But your shipyards were destroyed. Your industrial capacity was eliminated. Our old shipyards were destroyed, yes. But humans are very good at building things quickly when we need to, especially when we have new technology to work with. Marcus gestured to the approaching vessels. Amazing what you can accomplish when you combine human engineering with salvaged Zephyrian components. The Queen's legs gave out, and she collapsed back onto her throne. You planned this from the beginning, from the moment of your capture. I planned to survive. I planned to gather intelligence. I planned to find weaknesses. Marcus turned to face her fully. What I didn't plan was how much you would enjoy teaching me about your empire. You made this much easier than it had to be. The approaching human ships were close enough now for the displays to show details. They were ugly, practical vessels built from whatever materials were available. But they moved with deadly precision, and their weapons were clearly based on captured Zephyrian technology. You're outnumbered 1,000 to 1, the Queen said desperately. Even if you disable some of my ships, you cannot possibly defeat the entire Imperial fleet. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. You're right. In a straight fight, we'd lose. But this isn't a straight fight. He pointed to the tactical display, where chaos was spreading through her fleet faster than her admirals could respond. This is what humans call asymmetrical warfare. We don't fight your strengths. We attack your weaknesses. Ship after ship in the Zephyrian fleet was going dark or changing course erratically. The collected specimens aboard each vessel were following the plan that Marcus and his allies had spent weeks developing. Every species contributed their unique abilities to the coordinated assault on their captors. Your fleet can't fight effectively when it can't communicate, can't trust its own sensor data, and can't tell which orders are real and which are false, Marcus explained. And while your crews are dealing with internal sabotage, my people are attacking from outside with weapons designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses we've learned about. Queen Vexara looked around her throne room desperately, searching for some way to regain control. But every system she touched remained unresponsive. The ship that had been the symbol of her power was no longer hers to command. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want you to contact every Zephyrian world and tell them the war is over. I want you to order your remaining forces to withdraw from human space. And I want you to guarantee that your empire will never again attack a world simply because it looks weak." The Queen's laugh was bitter and broken. "You think you can hold this fleet indefinitely? Even if you succeed today, the Empire will send more ships, larger fleets. You cannot defeat all of Zephyrian space." "I don't need to defeat all of Zephyrian space," Marcus replied. "I just need to prove that humans can't be conquered, that we learn from every attack and come back stronger." He gestured to the tactical display, where human ships were now moving among the disabled Zephyrian vessels. "Every ship you lose here is one less ship you can use against the next world. Every technology we capture is one more weapon we can build. Every tactical doctrine we expose is one more advantage we gain." The truth of his words settled over Queen Vexara like a weight. The humans hadn't just escaped captivity. They had turned it into a learning opportunity. They had studied their enemies, stolen their technology, and used their own strengths against them. "You're not just fighting for Earth," she realized. "You're fighting for every world the Empire might attack." Marcus nodded. "Humans make good allies, Your Majesty. We remember our friends and we're very protective of them. Any species that helps us tends to stay helped." Through the throne room's windows, the Queen could see human ships moving to dock with disabled Zephyrian vessels. Boarding parties were securing ships and taking prisoners. Her mighty fleet was being systematically captured by an enemy she had dismissed as primitive. "The galaxy will never be the same," she whispered. "No," Marcus agreed. "It won't. Because now every species knows that the Zephyrian Empire can be beaten. Not by superior technology or natural gifts, but by intelligence and determination and the willingness to never give up." 6 months later, Queen Vexara sat in a small but comfortable room aboard what had once been her flagship. The room was not a cell. The door was not locked, and she could walk freely in certain sections of the ship. But she was undeniably a prisoner, kept alive because her knowledge of the Empire's structure was valuable to the new alliance forming among the liberated worlds.